I'm Leigh Brown. This is Crazy Shit in Real Estate. And I'm just going to go ahead and let you know you're going to be joining a conversation that's already in progress because I was working with Nathan White on something extra before we decided to make a really interesting episode for y'all. I think you're going to enjoy this. You can call him Nathan. You can call him Nate as long as you call him. But enjoy this conversation, and I'll see you on the other side. So if you're in real estate and you're listening to this podcast or watching it and thinking, man, I need some more Leigh Brown answers in my life. Well, guess what, friends? I have a new program that is launching right now called Answers.Real Estate, where I will give you every bit of insight I have to help you grow your real estate business, help you better respond to consumers, to provide a more excellent real estate experience so that the next time you land on crazy shit in real estate, you'll have a better solution to whatever you ran into. Answers.Real Estate. There are monthly plans available. You will love it. Get your coaching. Sign up with me today.
So, podcast, crazy shit. But what do we talk about?
Let's see.
I could talk all kind of crazy shit. I can talk crazy shit consumers, crazy shit real estate agents, or just that our industry is actually crazy. Even the process of buying a home is crazy.
What's interesting about the podcast is that when I started it 9 years ago, my audience was primarily realtors. And in the years since then, it is now about 70% consumer based on downloads and inquiries, which I find to be fascinating. But it also goes to the reality that the public is absolutely fascinated by real estate. They watch HGTV like candy. They watch Selling Sunset and think it's real because people are just in love with houses and real estate. So when they consume this podcast, they're looking for the behind the scenes kind of stories or the behind the scenes information. And so when I do my podcast with the head of the VA, the listeners were like, oh, this is great. And they're telling their friends. So I love it when the information hits a lot of different angles. All I ask is that if you lean into any real estate acronyms, that you spell them out, because since so much of our audience is not in real estate, and frankly, some of the realtors that listen are not super.
That's 90%. Yeah. Listen, I'm battling that. Like I actually said yesterday, I said, one, I gave too much credit to the consumer and I gave too much credit to agents. We just had a broker advisory meeting about all these changes. 800 brokers in our MLS, 84 showed up.
Oh, I thought you said 800 showed up, and I was going to be so excited and said I'm deflated.
84. But
that's a huge turnout because normally you get 15 to a broker meeting, and that's the problem right there.
Yeah, and yet though, when this shit hits the fan, they're going to blame the board and the MLS, and it's not their responsibility. It's actually your broker who is your leader who's doing a poor job, and you need to think about where you hang your license and who's educating you and teaching you.
And that's where I think the brokerage model is broken, but I don't know what the new best version is, because when you look at 1973, Dave Liniger starts RE/MAX and says it's not, yeah. So anyway, for 20 years, I was at RE/MAX and I love the brokers and the agents, but like every other brand, it lost its way. Right. Because when he started it, he was the first one to say, this is not about the broker, this is about the agent. And sadly, our agents totally internalized that to say, I am the queen bee and the princess at all times. Well, then the race downhill on what brokers can charge to agents for that supervision, for that liability, for that cover has gone down to nothing. And at the same time, RE/MAX used to be the home of the tippy top, most experienced, the best of the best. So you worked your way up to RE/MAX. When Keller Williams came in and started the big team project in the early 2000s, well, I guess late 90s, early 2000s, RE/MAX did not respond. So they kept bleeding agents. And then their response became, hire everybody. Well, then they denigrated their own brand. Brokers, some of them lost their way. Some became just amazing trainers like John Mangus. Do you know John in Ohio? He was Ohio president in.
Oh, John. Yeah. He gave me my award for my best, my good neighbor award I won.
There you go. He is a great human. And so he runs a RE/MAX office, but it's centered on training, and it always has been. He's very rare in that regard, as you know. But when you look at the environment we're in today, the brokers are carrying increased liability, increased risk. Agents aren't paying them anything. And when an agent goes to a brokerage, their first thing is, well, I don't want to pay you anything. I want to have all the protection you offer with no fee. brokers get disconnected from their agents because what does it matter? The agent's not paying anything to be here, so I'm just going to go gather up all these people. It's just really disconnected right now. But the system at the state level, on the commission level, is built on the need for a broker. When the brokers are on the hook for agents that they really don't have a relationship with, it is just I don't know what the answer is. I think it's more the tiny boutiques is probably your only answer, or to get super training centric. But then you have to train agents to want a training centric broker and be willing to pay for it. And now we're in a society that wants everything to be free.
For free. That's right. It is no, I don't know what the answer is to
Yeah,
that, you know. But speaking of
that's a whole
Remax,
different.
did you know Vadim Barash at all?
I don't know that name.
He sold franchises for Remax for quite a while. I
Oh,
always
they
thought
didn't sell in the
not in the
Carolinas.
Carolinas, no. But you know, I've always found a lot of the Remax story interesting. You know, like why was the balloon crooked? Well, it's because it was drawn on a napkin and they didn't tell them to straighten it. And when they did the design, that was the way it was done. You know, there's always there like I like the
Always just
stories.
kind of listing, but now you can't use the leaning balloon because that's not the current trademark. It's a whole thing.
Yeah. So, either way.
But
Well,
I did enjoy the brand. I thought they did a good job at the time, but I outgrew it. And I think it's okay too for agents to know you can outgrow the broker you're with if they're not providing what's needed right now. And to your point of 800 brokers, 84 show up. If I'm an agent in the market today and my broker didn't show up to an educational session about what's going on, now, unless they're dialed in somewhere else and didn't have to go to that session because they were in the executive committee, we might give them a pass. But agents put up with too much, just like consumers have put up with too much. Why haven't consumers quit hiring their brother-in-law who's never sold anything and then complain that he doesn't know real estate?
well, again, Rob Hahn talks about we could have probably solved this by having actually a better requirement because a blind monkey that reads Braille can get a license.
Yeah, but
There's
that's state commission issues. So Rob and I talk
right.
about this all the time. Is what we want as practitioners, we want the regulatory body to do, but the regulatory body just wants to make money for the state coffers. And the hidden truth of this that most people don't know, most agents, most consumers have no idea. So here's your little insight. The unemployment rate in every state is driven by employed persons versus unemployed persons, or people who are the people who have opted out of the job market no longer count towards that rate, but people that are looking count. In every state, they count real estate licenses as employed persons. So then you have to realize that if the state regulatory agencies were to change the requirements, and in North Carolina, I think we have 120,000 licenses, even though only 55,000 choose to be a part of the Realtor Trade Association and the Code of Ethics. If you lose half of those, is that enough to tick the unemployment rate? And as we all know, politicians are only really focused on election and reelection of themselves more so than their constituents. That's a different conversation. So nobody on either side of the aisle wants to be responsible for uptick in the unemployment rate. And I think that is part of why there's resistance at the commission level. That plus all of those licensees are turning in renewal fees every single year to fill those coffers up. And even though people like me, and I'm just going to go ahead and guess you, if you get rid of the people who are not committed to this and triple my dues, I'm okay with that.
That's right. I
I'd
pay
be
it all
glad to
day.
pay more.
Sure would again, and I totally hear it. It's and I've heard that kind of sentiment before, and also the well, we got to keep it fair. We can't create barriers. Really, we create barriers for doctors, for CPAs, for everybody else, but the largest transaction that people are typically involved in, we just willy-nilly, you got a license, go out there. And I'm like, look.
Yeah, what is that? That is so true, though, that there is a dismissiveness when it comes to real estate, but you look at the amount of liability we carry, it's kind of wild.
Yeah,
And
it is.
but I think it's a fundamental misunderstanding of the business. And remember that slide that James showed that talked about in the polling numbers, how much of the public even knew something was going on in real estate? And it was like 27%.
Yep.
But we all obsess about it nonstop, those of us that are full-time practitioners, because all we can think about is what's going to happen to our marketplace and how do we adapt to it. And the public does real estate 3 times in their lifetime. So they're like, whatever. They're kind of dismissive because they're not in the heat of the moment right now.
Well,
Is
and
that
their news
their
feed's not filled with realtors and all the other crap, right? The algorithm picks it up, that fills it. I actually went to 10 of my neighbors or friends, and I had a simple question. What can you tell me about the NAR settlement? 8 of the 10 said, one, I have no idea what you're talking about. The other 2 said, I only know something loosely because I think you made a post about it. And people are like, well, why would you want to know? I said, because everybody's running around beating this drum about I'm valuable because, but people don't know why you're beating the drum even. And you're beating the wrong drum. You need to be beating the drum to what you said. And that was another sticking point. The people that need us the most are the ones that are gonna be the most impacted, period. Yoshi and I, you talked about the client. Everybody has that one. I had the Alexanders, a family from Haiti that still to this day resonate with me gigantically. Yoshi had his, Sarah and Chris. Listen, their financial literacy was at a negative score, had to be. They financed their Uber order a week before close. $180 Uber order. I'm like, what the hell are y'all buying on a Uber Eats anyway? But then they used the Affirm payment, whatever you did, and it flagged their credit. And I was like, what, but again, they stopped paying their rent because they were saving money for the house and the down payment. Luckily, now mind you, I was able to get the derogatory removed of the rent. I got them to pay it because they had it, got it removed, and they did the Uber thing.
Okay,
And
so
I'm like,
just
you're the perfect example of why we're needed. Because one, and even a new agent would have quit or given up on it.
right. Because
But
they
at
wouldn't
least my experience was like, hey, I like problems. I tell people all the time, that's what I do. And we were able to solve the problem. And we made her dream specifically to Sarah to watch somebody cry about getting an $160,000 home. To some people, yeah, not a big deal. To me, big deal. And then afterwards, I even took it a step further. I said, Sarah, Chris, I'm actually going to have an ask of you now. They said, what? I said, I'm going to find a couple classes that I want you to take to learn about your finances and managing your credit and what debt income is and these things that should be taught on a basic level in high school. That's a whole other soap opera. But because I don't want you to go what you went through to only lose the house because you made poor choices. That's why we're needed.
Did they agree with that? Did they go to the classes?
Yes. I'm still looking to see, like, that was a kind of a from the hip, but I knew that in my mind, if I didn't find something that would help educate them, the possibility of losing that home is exponential almost. So if I
Well,
can at
you
least,
mentioned that. I'm thinking Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University, and I have some issues with some of the things Dave Ramsey
right,
teaches. I don't have to agree with him 100%,
right.
but that Financial Peace University is a wonderful class. And I've always wondered why more brokerages and associations don't put, probably because it's faith-based, but if you put on a class like that that explains the right use of credit and credit cards and how to pay off the debt that mounts up on you. And he talks about the importance of owning real estate, even though I disagree with him that you should have giant down payments. To me, you get into it somehow with a payment you can manage because you have to get started. And I don't think his method really works in an escalating market like we have now, but there's so many tools that are helpful. But you're 100% right. We don't set anybody up for success when we get them in, and we don't keep them there because we got to keep people in their houses too.
It's a hit it and quit it mentality, and that's the wrong mentality.
But I'm still kind of floored here. Did you say they financed Uber Eats? That's a
Yeah.
thing?
If it's over, and yeah, I guess it is because I didn't know about it either. But I think if your order's over $100, you can choose like a split payment option or something like that. But it's still reported to your credit.
Wow. I mean, I've told plenty of people, don't go buy furniture, don't buy a car when you're in the process, don't do anything to your credit because you want to stay focused on the end goal here. It has never occurred to me. And it's not just Uber Eats, it's all of these different little apps and the stuff they sell on Instagram gives you that 4 easy payments option.
That's right. That gets hit on your credit. And again, that's changing times and stuff. But like, I mean, I was like, when Yoshi told me, I was like, all right, one, if you're financing your rates, you need to think about that. Let's pause. But again, we give the consumer too much credit. So, all right. But 180, I'm still good. What'd y'all order for $180 on Uber Eats? But
Well, maybe
again,
they were having wings for their Super Bowl party. I mean, people
who
can.
knows? Yeah, right. But never encountered that hurdle. That was a new one. We figured it out. But again, financial literacy is a different thing. And I only know what I know because of what I do. I was stupid when I was young and didn't understand my credit and DTI and all of that. So, I'm just
Well, look at
fortunate.
when people get their first credit card. It's usually when they're 18 or 19, going off to college, going off to the military, and you become this perfect target because you don't have derogatory credit. You also don't have any income, but they will give you a credit card in a flat minute, and immediately you're sucked into the debt burden that stays on most people for their entire working life.
Yeah. I mean, we're around the same age. When I did my
Medium, yes.
when I did my few quarters at Georgia Southern, I mean, I'd go to my mailbox. There would be a credit card in the mail. Like, here you go. You have
You're
$5,000.
vaccinated.
Awesome. I have beer money. I had no way to pay it off. Rack up all the debt. Hey, mom. Hey, dad.
Well, I'm a
$6,000.
girl, so I got invited to the parties where they were using that card to buy the beer money. So thank you to all the fellas who financed all the girl
We had
stuff.
ulterior motives there, Leigh. So
I mean, obviously, but I was using mine to go buy CDs from BMI Music Club.
yes, that's right. Get 15. Yep, I remember. So anyway,
For a
yeah, the
penny.
podcast, that is interesting that your podcast has morphed. So I did a podcast with two other guys, a broker out of Seattle and an agent a broker out of Atlanta. Both were broker owners, and I was the agent side. We did over 100 episodes, and again, it was awesome because I was privy to become acquainted and get to know people like Glenn Kelman and Sam and some other. Put me in, Joseph Rand, who I have a ton of respect for. A lot of people that I was very fortunate to meet, be introduced to, and still maintain relationships with. And what it's interesting why, I guess, is how do you make real estate entertaining? How do you make people want to listen, right? So I take real estate out of it. Somebody's like, well, how do you make plumbing exciting? Like, does a plumber start a podcast about plumbing? Well, no, because it's boring.
There's a huge plumber YouTube channel. The guy gives little insights to homeowners how to deal with things, and it's an educational channel. Have you watched it? It's so good.
No, and that's
And
where
I
our miss was, I think,
should
was
know the
that
name of it.
we should have done a YouTube channel in conjunction with the podcast, and we didn't.
Well, I guess the next podcast you do will have a video component like this one right here.
It will, because it's a pet project, and it's going to be called Black and White, because my very good friend and now a neighbor of mine that lives across the street, he's African American, his wife is white. We have amazing discussions and dialogue about very controversial things. The logo for that podcast is going to be half his face and half mine put together. And it's just going to be called Black and White. Well, I want to do it because
I'm just picturing AI because AI could make it look really bad.
good too. Yeah.
I saw some black Donald Trumps and some black Joe Biden.
Yeah. I'm
In
going
my
to do some
feed
cool. We're
yesterday.
going
I
to
was
be
like,
cool
oh,
how we do it. But,
okay.
and the podcast is going to be about controversial things. But what I wanted to show is that here's two gentlemen that are from very different backgrounds. We're different races, but we also love each other dearly. They're neighbors of mine now. They had their own, how they ended up in my neighborhood. Liv, one day I said, Liv, why don't you look out where we live in New California? And she's like, well, Nathan, that's a little more rural. And William's a mixed race child, don't you? And I said, I sure do. I said, I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for my street and where I live. That doesn't matter to us. And I said, I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to think about your answer. Are you becoming what you're trying to avoid?
Oh.
And she's like, touche.
Mm.
And I said, because listen, change is happening in our community, whether they like it or not. And she said, okay. I had a neighbor call me and said, hey, I want this from my house. Do you think it can happen? I was like, hold my beer. I called Olivia and Pat, said, you got one shot. They've now been my neighbor for several years. And I could have her on your podcast and say, Liv, are there any issues? And she would say, yes, we've enjoyed it way more than we ever thought we would. And it's a wonderful community. And I was looking through the wrong ones.
Well, frankly, it's what happens when you put the neighbor status above anything else. And that was intended to be the point of fair housing. I think we just get so strangled by this idea of check boxes that we lose sight of this is actually about every neighbor in every zip code being neighbors, which we all know that's the solution to everything that ails us right now is neighbors who can drink a beer together in the driveway and have really raucous conversations and then clink the bottles and get back together the next night and talk about something else, which is how
Yep.
things used to be before we decided to turn everything into a temper tantrum on TikTok.
That's my neighborhood, though, that you just described. Friday night, we talked about vacuums.
Vacuums. So was it
Yeah.
Dyson or Rainbow? Because was there a Rainbow salesman in the neighborhood? Is that
Actually, all of us agreed that Hoover back in the day, the big, heavy
the
ones that had the
canister?
bag. Yeah, that had the bag, just the one
Oh,
bag.
no, I'm
That
talking
there
about
were there
this
they
one
weigh.
that drag around behind
Oh,
you.
well, that one was brought up too, but the one that were like 100 pounds, but they just worked the best and they never broke, but Dysons
They,
break this,
if
that, and the
you,
other.
I will say this though, if you ever used that thing around a fireplace and vacuumed up all the ashes, and maybe you overfilled the bag and then you vacuumed the next time and it went, that's how you could destroy a Hoover. I heard about this. This is third party information, of course, but
Right.
oh my gosh, I had a rainbow salesman at my house one time, and I think that's the risk of owning real estate is the rainbow salesman will find you. And have you ever had a rainbow salesman at your house?
No, I mean, I remember, but not at mine now. No.
We had my daughter was, she must have been a month old or something. So neither of us had slept. And then we let this woman in the house. She is vacuuming the lampshade, showing us how the rainbow could clean the lampshade. And both of us we were just about to die. And of course, the baby was sleeping the whole time. So she couldn't even holler and give us an out. And I don't know that we've had people over since then. Frankly, that was the worst experience ever. But now you say vacuums, and I think about the night my vacuum lady vacuumed the lampshade.
My mother would put us to bed as children and vacuum the footprints out of the carpet on the way out of the room.
Oh, is that how she would know if you came in or out of the room without being
No, it's
without
just she was
permission?
that OCD about cleaning and stuff.
Well, I would use
And
that as a way to know if the
she's
kids
a
were eating out.
fiery little Southern lady from South Georgia. So,
Love
hey,
her.
I went to the Methodist church and we did, revivals with the Baptist church, and son goes to the Presbyterian school and yada, yada, yada. So yeah, that was my
That's
life.
good to get all the mainline denominations in one family. Look at you
Yes,
covering the
we
bases.
covered them all.
Okay,
So,
so let me ask you a question. So you're
yep.
an inked up realtor, so you can show your pretty ink. People ask me
Mm-hmm.
why I don't have tattoos, and I have to explain that I have commitment issues, and I also just it's not my jam. But I want you to tell a story about real estate and tattoos and what it's done positively or negatively in your business to let people see that there's a personal part of you physically worn outside.
Okay. You
Because
want it
I have
now?
a lot of realtor friends that are afraid afraid to uncover their ink because they don't want to be judged. But I just don't think the public negatively judges unless you have the teardrops on your face and then you're a gang person killing people. I think that's a different level. That
It's
post
not 1987 anymore either.
is it not?
No, it's not. We've actually moved forward in some places, but no. And my mother, Southern traditional woman, tattoos are just tacky.
Where's she got some
They're
ink
that.
now? Did she get a piece of
No,
scripture on
she ain't got
it?
nothing. No, they're just tacky. I got the other uncle, Nathan. Your body's the temple of God, and you're desecrating it, and therefore you're going to go to hell. Oh God Almighty! Like really, So,
So the
but yeah,
tattoos are
we can.
graffiti on the temple. I didn't know that.
Who knows? I mean,
I love you, Uncle Bob. I'm just playing. We know you mean well.
So are we talking about that right now?
Yeah, talk about that because I
Oh,
know that
I guess you're
it
recording. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
because
shit.
let me just point this out because I fuss about professional dress all the time, but I don't think it is unprofessional to let people see what is you. That's not the same thing as the person who just looks like they don't care. I think it's two different things altogether, but they get conflated because people try to do this imaginary perfection issue that they saw on Instagram one time of what they think they're supposed to be. So I'm going to, I called you Inky when I met you in a
You did.
presentation because I didn't know your name. And so it was just easier to call you by your ink.
Well, yeah. I think about when I first got into real estate. Like, I had my white Volvo. I wore a sport coat and my bow tie. I mean, think all that traditional Southern crap, right? And that's fine. That works. But ultimately, again, it wasn't authentically me. I was uncomfortable. And I think that just kind of oozes out. I think people pick up on that, right? Like,
I agree.
they smell the BS, right? Like, hey, this person's not really, they're they're portraying something they're not. it's okay to have tattoos, in my opinion. I mean, hell, I just spoke at a conference in North Carolina, right? I wore Viore, nice slacks, a nice Viore shirt, and I'm probably saying that name wrong, but they're nice things, right? That's still a professional look. I don't have to cover my tattoos and who I am. And more importantly, a lot of times people say, well, what do your tattoos mean?
Right.
Well, they're a story. All over me, right? I'm from Georgia. Howard Lee Kilgo was a grandfather. Pop was my other grandfather. I've got bees that represent one other grandmother. I've got cherry blossoms that represent another grandmother of mine. I have my son Beckett's name tattooed on me. I lived in California. I have my marriage date. I have my son's name, who we lost. They all tell a story. Stories are powerful. We know that. But it's funny when people ask me about my tattoos and I start telling the story behind them, guess what happens? I don't know, I call it like that avatar thing, right? All of a sudden we start, kind of connecting and then they realize, oh wait, while he may have tattoos, he's a very authentic and real individual. And he's passionate about his family. Now I'm getting tattoos on my lower, but there's a very specific reason of who gets to choose them. It's my nieces and nephews and my children. And so
Aw.
recently I just got 2 butterflies because my nieces were like, we want butterflies because we love butterflies. JoJo wanted pink and she got a pink butterfly with a J, and Blakely got a purple one with a B. Blair, my niece in Athens, is heavily involved in 4-H in Athens, Georgia. Go Dogs! If I didn't mention that, sick 'em back to back. I don't know how most people associate us other than awesome, but she wanted something that symbolized 4-H. Well, of course, I got the 4-leaf clover and her name as the stem. Now, interesting enough, the one that really is powerful to me is the hummingbird. My son chose the hummingbird, and there's a great story behind that. So when I came up with this idea of letting my children and the nieces and nephew pick the hummingbirds or pick tattoos, I said, it can't, like, I don't want to be like, hey, Uncle Nate, I want Bluey. No, it needs to actually mean something. So I asked my son, I said, what do you want dad to get for a tattoo? And I said, it has to have meaning. I need you to think about it. He said, okay, Dad. He goes, I want you to get a hummingbird. And I said, why? He said, well, it's the only bird that flies backwards. And it reminds me of our trips to Rocky Mountain National Park in Breckenridge.
How old
And I
is
was
he?
like, yeah, he was 9 when he said that. Well, one, it was like mic drop kind of thing, right? And I was like, absolutely. And so I got the hummingbird done. And what really is unique, again, I go with that commitment in the universe. Call it God, Buddha, whoever you want, folks. But I, again, believe that there's no such thing as coincidences, right? Well, as I'm thinking about my brand, Nate, what it means and how to tell stories and have a logo or a symbol behind who you are, right? I was discussing one night at dinner with my wife and son. I still believe it's important to have dinner with your family and to sit there and communicate with your kids. That's time again that you're never going to get back. And often we have music in the background, and we're chatting. And I said, honey, I got to figure out this logo. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I said, how I like my little hang ten shirts that have the little, hang ten symbol, it's kind of cool. I like it. That's me, right? Like chill. And my wife goes, well, what's a hummingbird mean? So I don't know. She's let me look it up. Now, before I tell you, give you some context, right? I mean, December 25th of 2020, I almost died. I got admitted to ICU with COVID, pneumonia, sepsis, and AFib. Spent some time in ICU. I survived that. Then I made my achalasia worse, which is an esophageal motility disorder. I ended up having to have a very long surgery where they took my stomach, wrapped it around my esophagus to create basically a P-trap, cut my lower esophageal sphincter open, and fixed a hernia while they're in there. Then I had a reaction to something else, had to have lipomas cut out of my arm. I had to be cardio converted as well, got through all that. And then I had my accident where I hurt my back, and then I had to have the spinal surgery, laminectomy, discectomy, and spinal fusion to install the 2 rods and the 4 screws. That's the last 4 years of my life. Mentally, it was debilitating, hard, tough. I'm still trying to be a father, a parent, a realtor, a friend, an advocate for the people, but it was exhausting and it was trying. And Uniquely enough, when my wife looked up the hummingbird, when she's like, it should be the logo and what it meant, it was pretty cool. And I'm all about meanings. My children's names, it was about meanings, right? So when she looked it up, it was funny. Hummingbirds, yet small or mighty, represent courage and strength.
Oh,
They're also seen as messengers of positivity and light. And lastly, they're also considered, if you see one, that they're signals that challenging times are over and healing can begin.
oh,
And I was like, Shazam. And my wife kind of stood up from the table and did the mic drop, right? But I was like, holy crap. And so it's funny again that my tattoos, albeit wild and crazy, maybe zany, people wonder why. When I tell them a story about that, oh, wait, he's human. There's humanity still in the world. I mean, that's ultimately why I do what I do, because I believe in humanity. I believe in people. I don't believe the media. Jesus, Lord, help me. We watch that all day. I mean, the world's falling apart and everything's burning down. I will tell you that's factually incorrect. I watched when we lost our son Reagan, the people that rallied around us, supported us, people that didn't even know. The world is a better place than we see. And
I
so
agree.
humanity's important. And I don't know, just a believer, if everybody kind of approached things from that and kind of pump the brakes and slow down a little bit, boy, we'd be a better place. We're a good place, but we'd be even better. So the tattoos, yeah, I don't care anymore. What are you gonna say to me? This is my story. You can't take my story away from me, can you? No, you can't. So
And she want to.
you can try. It don't matter. So, right. And I again, I don't care. You know, I have a compass rose over here. People say, why'd you get that? Well, one, I love to scuba dive, but to me,
Okay.
it's also it's symbolic of my direction changing in life and that we're all capable of changing direction for the better. So again, the meanings.
Well, that's more meaningful than I thought because I see your compass rose and I think Jimmy Buffett. And so it's where your mind just kind of goes in a different direction.
Well, there, you mentioned Jimmy Buffett, but when I die, my wife hates when I say this, but Jimmy Buffett has a song called "A Pirate Looks at 40."
I love that song. I loved it more
It
when I turned
is.
40 a while back. So
And I've always felt I should be a pirate. I love to scuba dive. I love the water. I love undersea. But Dave Matthews is my favorite band out there. It's my man crush too. Seen him 85 times. So hey, but I want a pirate looks at 40 played when I died.
So do you have a twirler on your arm from Dave Matthews? Because I love to twirl at a DMB. There we go. All right.
The fire dancer, right there. You go. That's right. So yeah, they all represent something.
I knew I liked you. I saw Dave the first time in 1996 in Munich
Oh, in Munich. Well, I
at
got you beat on
MTV
that one.
Rock in the Park, but Dave was a warm-up band because that being that's almost 30 years ago now, the headliner was Bryan Adams.
Oh, Brian Adams. Wow. I mean, we're going back now, aren't we?
He was a headliner in 96. That's how far behind the Germans were from American music, but Dave was a warm-up act with, Bush and presidents of the USA,
Oh,
and
wow. Yeah.
it was a great lineup, but now I'm having warm and fuzzy flashbacks to Dave Matthews and see people. This is why it's important to always be looking and listening for stories because, as Nate likes to say, everybody has one, even though not everybody's a storyteller. So don't overlook the stories that you find along the way. So, Nate, if somebody wants to find you and find out more about your speaking engagements, your presentations that you're giving, or how they can engage you as an amazing agent, tell them where's the best place for them to find you and what markets do you actually service as a practicing realtor?
Well, I service Central Ohio. That's the easiest. Our market is large, but Central Ohio. I'll go anywhere. Somebody wants to find a house, let's go find it. How do you get in touch with me? Easy. I'm still catching up on that tech, Lee. I'm not the tech savvy guy, but I'm
One
just
day.
still, I'm getting there. I do have a QR code I could send you, but you can simply too just go to nathanrwhite@gmail.com. Not hard. I'm also known as Next Home Nathan on Instagram. Um, because I'm going to help you find your next home. Oh wait, my brokerage that I'm at is next home. Funny how that worked.
The same.
It's coincident. I maybe not, but those are the easy ways. Or I mean, pick up the phone. 614-499-2041. I hope you don't know my grandmother's phone number from back in the day because we had to memorize numbers, and now that's my password to everything.
Oh, your grandma's phone number? That's a pretty handy thing, but we didn't have to use area codes back then, so that
Yeah,
also
well,
tripped up the young people.
yeah, right. I talked about a collect call in my presentation, and I had to pause for a minute and go, some of you don't know what I'm talking about. So
They were very important, though, at the time.
they were, and I still remember all those phone numbers, area
And
code
look,
included.
people, I know you're trying to figure out now how to get in touch with him. Don't worry. All the contact information is in the show notes for this episode. So just click right over there to connect with Nate, ask him questions, make friends with him, send him referrals. Nate, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and going in 1,000 directions with me, which is my favorite kind of episode.
You got it, Leigh. Thanks for having me.
All right, people, you got something to say, you got a comment to make, hit me in the comments. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell, and we'll see you next time for more crazy shit in real estate. By the way, friends, don't miss my brand new coaching program at answers.realestate, where you can have access to Leigh Brown, submit your questions, have them answered, meet like-minded professionals, have an entire library to help you build your business no matter what happens in the market. Get signed up today. I promise you'll be glad you did. So if you found value in this episode, please like and subscribe to this channel, turn on the bell, and catch another amazing episode by clicking above. Crazy Shit in Real Estate is also available in all of your normal podcast apps. So if that's where you like to hang out, go find me, click subscribe, and most importantly, leave me a review that says you think I'm awesome, my guests are awesome, or this content is just exactly what you were looking for. And then, by the way, if there's something you need, you want to learn about something, you can comment below anytime. You can also send me a direct message if you need to remain anonymous. No judgment. But anyway, I'll only judge if you forget to subscribe and click. I'll see you next time.